Hello, and welcome back to my channel. It has certainly been a while. With the new set coming out in a couple weeks and a lot of new Ruby Steel options coming our way, I wanted to showcase the deck that I used to bring home my own scar. Unlike previous sets, Ruby Steel wasn't the best option, moving into like set champs and stuff like that, but with set 7 and new cards like Mushu, Mulan, and a few others that are being released, I really think we're going to see a huge rise in Ruby Steel players. So hopefully this deck gives you an idea of what you're going to run into or what you might actually want to play. Now, of course, this deck will evolve as I add in set 7 cards. However, this video is just to showcase what worked for me in set 6 and the direction I will be taking moving into set 7. Now, let's start off with the 1-drops. To start things off, we have 2 Moana, 4 Mickey Mouse, and 4 Robin Hood. Now, Sticky Mickey is essential for this deck, especially with the prevalence of Steel Song out there. It survives the turn 2 Cinderella Sing, which is huge in most cases. So if you're going up against a Steel Song deck and you know it's Steel Song, definitely want a hard mulligan to get the Mickey Mouse in your opening hand. And moving forward, we have the Robin Hood, which is just essential for the theme of this deck, as many of the cards in this deck itself will gain lore from challenging. And then we just have the 2 Moanas, as Moana is just a big body, especially for turn 1. That's very hard to deal with in most cases unless you're Steel Song. But in almost every other matchup, it's a pretty good card, and it trades with almost anything. To get rid of it, they have to trade stuff that they definitely don't want to trade, like foxes, crabs, and so on. All right, for the 2-drops, we have 4 Smee, 4 Calhoun, 4 Queen of Hearts, 3 Flynn Rider, and 1 Doc. Now, Mr. Smee is just an essential deck for almost all Steel builds. It's a 3-body quest for 2 that's inkable. It's almost, you have to throw it in the deck. Calhoun is great as it's a 3/2 with resist 1 that when it banishes a character, it gains 2 lore. That's awesome, especially when you pair it up with cards that are coming. You can have very, very good tempo turns where you gain a ton of lore. Now, Queen of Heart is a spicy little addition to this deck, and it works well against these diggy hole decks. If someone turn 1 Cinderellas, they sing, remove your turn 1, then you can, on turn 2, play Queen of Hearts, remove that Cinderella, and you kind of are back in the game a little bit. Because a turn 1 Cinderella for your opponent is huge, especially if you can't get rid of that thing early. It can just keep singing songs and removing cards from your board, and that's a problem. Now, we're only running 3 Flynn in this deck. You can add a 4th if you want. Maybe drop a Calhoun to add an additional Flynn Rider. That works, but for the way I wanted to run this deck, I only ran 3. Especially in my locals, there wasn't as many blue players as I expected. So 3 was a pretty good number for me. And 1 Doc, as I don't want to really want to see more than one of it. If you open up a hand and if your opening hand is more than 1 Doc, you're kind of dead in the water, and you don't want that. So 1 Doc is perfectly fine in this build. So for the 3-drops, we're running 4 Pete and 3 Shere Khan. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Calhoun works great with Shere Khan. If you can do a turn 2 Calhoun and then a turn 3 Shere Khan, Calhoun is now challenging for 3 instead of 2, and that's huge. As well as many of your other cards, you can just challenge with, and you're still gaining lore. You don't have to worry about falling behind while challenging. Shere Khan really helps in that sense. And Pete, obviously, you just want to stop the B preps, the how far it goes, and any other actions that may put you behind a little bit in the game. 4 of them is essential. Alright, and at 4, we are running 4 copies of Super Goof and 1 copy of Raya. Super Goof is essential as it's an inkable card that has Rush and gains lore whenever it challenges. It's very useful in the aggro meta that was set 6, especially with the prevalence of these diggy hole decks that were quite fast. Super Goof helps you get back in the game while taking care of their board. Raya is an awesome addition from set 6. Whenever you ink a card, you can ready a card. They can't quest, but they can still challenge, which is the point of this deck anyways. So if it synergizes well with cards like Calhoun, Super Goof, Shere Khan, Robin Hood even. So it's essential. Right now I'm only running 1 copy of it, but moving forward into set 7 and how prevalent challenging will be in set 7, this number can go up to maybe 2 or 3. Right, so we have quite a few cards at 5. To start things off, we have the Shift Robin Hood. We spoke about that earlier. It synergizes well with Raya, Shere Khan. It's great. Now we have our main draw engine, which is the Shift Queen of Hearts. Obviously, this deck is built around challenging. So Queen of Hearts is essential and works really well with that. And you can have turns where you just refill your hand completely. We also have 3 copies of Tragic Hero, which is obviously great for drawing cards. And then we have Maui to deal with the bigger threats and to just help you get back into games. Now, at 6, we have a spicy addition that I added after my set champs, and it's Wreck-It Ralph. Now, at my set champs, I ran into a lot of Din's list, which focused on playing the McDuck Manor and protecting that at all costs. So Wreck-It Ralph really helps out in that case, as when this character quests, you may banish a chosen item or location and gain 2 lore. Now this is huge as it already quests for 3. And if your opponent has a McDuck Manor or an item on board, you can quest for 3, banish that, and then turn it into a 5 lore gain just from 1 questing, which is huge. This deck is very character heavy, and the only songs we are running in this deck is 4 copies of Along Came Zeus, and this is just to get rid of the bigger threats, especially the Maui sharks that are out there. Unfortunately, this deck does struggle against evasive characters. However, there is an answer to that, and that's Imperial Bow. Imperial Bow gives chosen hero characters Challenger 2 and evasive this turn. Now, in many cases, this can help you out, especially with cards like Genie and Shark out there. Let's say you have a Calhoun in play. You can tap Imperial Bow, give Calhoun Challenger 2, and then it can actually get rid of the Maui Shark and the Genie. So Imperial Bow is essential, especially with how many hero characters are in this deck.